Picture this, a cozy apartment, maybe there's a fireplace. Definitely a working stove, you know, the basics. A place to hang your hat and rest your head after a long day. That's the American dream, right? Well, for the residents of Lowell Emerson Apartments in Seattle, that dream was a mold-infested, leaky ceiling nightmare. Instead of fireplaces, they had space heaters when they worked. Instead of hot meals, they had cold showers. This wasn't the American dream, this was a housing horror show. This wasn't just a case of a few leaky faucets and some creaky floorboards. We're talking systemic neglect. The kind of disregard for human dignity that makes you wonder if the landlords even saw their tenants as people. The kind of place where the only thing spreading faster than the roaches was a sense of despair. Let's talk specifics, shall we? Because neglect doesn't quite capture the full picture. Imagine no heat in the dead of winter. Try taking a cold shower after that. Did I mention the broken elevators, forcing elderly residents to climb multiple flights of stairs? And let's not forget the infestations. We're not talking about a few ants here. This was a full-blown insect party, and the tenants were the unwilling guests of honor. But wait, there's more. Crumbling walls, leaky ceilings, and black mold were just the tip of the iceberg. These weren't just inconveniences, they were serious health hazards. We're talking about conditions that could exacerbate respiratory problems, trigger allergies, and generally make life a living hell. And for what? So a landlord could line their pockets while their tenants suffered? Now you might think someone would be held accountable for this mess. Enter the Seattle Department of Construction and Inspections, SDCI, the supposed guardians of housing safety. You'd think they'd be all over this, right? Well, you'd be wrong. Despite a flood of complaints from desperate tenants, the SDCI seemed content to twiddle their thumbs and ignore the pleas for help. How is this possible, you ask? Well, Seattle, like many cities, has this adorable little loophole called self-certification. Landlords basically get to inspect their own properties and declare them safe. It's like letting a fox guard the henhouse, except the hens are paying exorbitant rent for the privilege of being eaten. Let's put some faces to these stories, shall we? Meet Sarah, a single mother struggling to keep her kids warm during a Seattle winter with no heat. Meet Mr. Jones, an elderly veteran forced to climb 4 flights of stairs because the elevator's broken again. Meet Maria, a young woman with asthma, struggling to breathe in her mold-infested apartment. These aren't just statistics. These are real people, our neighbors, enduring horrific living conditions because their landlord prioritized profit over human decency and the city turned a blind eye. This is about more than just housing. It's about dignity, respect, and the fundamental right to live in a safe and healthy environment. The RRIO farce, a rubber stamp for landlord neglect. Now the SDCI claims they're just overworked. They point to their Rental Registration and Inspection Ordinance program, which is supposed to ensure rental properties are up to code. But let's be honest, the REO is about as effective as a screen door on a submarine. It's a bureaucratic facade designed to give the illusion of oversight while allowing landlords to operate with impunity. The reality is the REO is severely understaffed and underfunded. Inspections are often rushed or non-existent, and landlords know they can game the system. It's a classic case of regulatory capture, where the industry being regulated has more influence than the people the regulations are supposed to protect. Tenants unite, fighting back against Goliath. But here's the thing about Seattle tenants. They're made of tougher stuff than leaky pipes and broken promises. They refuse to be ignored. They demand answers. They understood that their fight wasn't just about broken elevators and moldy walls. It was about power. The power of landlords to exploit and the power of the city to protect. And slowly but surely, their voices began to be heard. The situation at Lowell Emerson Apartments is a stain on Seattle's conscience. It's a stark reminder that behind the gleaming facade of progress, there are thousands of people living in deplorable conditions, failed by the very systems meant to protect them. This isn't just about one building. It's about a city grappling with an affordability crisis while neglecting the basic needs of its most vulnerable residents. The Seattle Department of Construction and Inspections, SDCI, despite its resources, has struggled to protect tenants and enforce basic habitability standards effectively. Seattle is facing a housing crisis exacerbated by systemic failures in oversight and enforcement. Critical issues such as unresolved tenant complaints, prolonged inspection delays, and widespread non-compliance with rental property registration requirements have left tenants in unsafe and uninhabitable conditions. The time for action is now. So, the future of Seattle, a choice between complacency and change. This is a crossroads for Seattle. Will it continue down the path of complacency, allowing landlords to profit while tenants suffer, or will it choose the path of justice, demanding accountability and ensuring safe, livable housing for all its residents? The choice is ours. We can choose to look away, to believe that this doesn't affect us. Or we can choose to open our eyes, to listen to the stories of our neighbors and to demand better for our city. Join the fight for housing justice. The fight for housing justice isn't just about bricks and mortar, it's about human dignity. It's about ensuring that everyone has a safe and decent place to call home. It's about creating a city where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, not just survive. So, what are you going to do? Will you stand by and watch as more people are forced to endure inhumane living conditions? Or will you join the fight for housing justice? The choice is yours. Choose wisely.